Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2024 album review. And today we're going to be talking about one of my most anticipated albums here in 2024, and one album I was definitely surprised to hear when it was announced. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be talking about the long-awaited new album from the Black Dahlia Murder entitled Servitude, which is out now through Metal Blade Records. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Black Dahlia Murder, they're a melodic death metal band from Michigan, been around since 2001, and Black Dahlia Murder for me are one of my all-time favorite bands, and one of my early bands that got me into, gateway bands, I should say, that got me into death metal when I was a teenager, and I've been a fan of these guys since high school. Like, Black Dahlia Murder and, of course, Cannibal Corpse were, my gateways into death metal, and ever since then, I've been a huge, get into death metal bands and other stuff, past and just in present right now. And these guys have been kicking it pretty much since their first album, which came out in 2003, which was Unhollowed. And I thought it was a great album. And then they put out albums such as Ever Black, which I thought was, my opinion, their best album. And of course, Deflorate, Ritual, Ever Black. And I think that for me, I feel like Black Dahlia Murder are the most consistent band in death metal from their first album up until, I believe, Nightbringers 2017. But there was a 3-year gap between that, because before that they had albums every 2 years. But then between 2017 with their album Nightbringers and then 2020 with their last album Verminous, I thought those were really good albums. And then in 2022, the world was shocked and saddened when founding member and vocalist Trevor Sternad had passed away at the age of 41, and I was shocked. And while it wasn't explicitly said how he died, there was a little suicide prevention hotline number at during the announcement of his passing, so it can only be implied that he died from suicide, which is just definitely terrible. And I've seen a lot of the interview, especially they did with Metal Injection. You could definitely watching that now, it definitely has new meaning and new context behind it. And then after a while, we were wondering if the Black Dahlia Murder would ever continue after that. But then it wasn't until they announced that little tribute memorial show for them, and I was curious how they would continue on. And then they announced that they continued on with Brian Eschbach, their guitarist and also founding member of the Black Dahlia Murder, switched to lead vocals, and then Ryan Knight, who has played on the albums from Deflorate up until Abysmal, had rejoined the band. And I was like, well, they're definitely back, and I'm kind of interested to see how this lineup will deliver. And seeing the live videos, I was like, yep, they're back. And I was definitely kind of amazed. So here we are with their 10th full-length album, Servitude. Does this kind of live up or exceed what Verminous has? In my opinion, I think definitely has, but I feel like it's also a new chapter, a new beginning for the Black Dahlia Murder in a way, with a new lineup, new lead vocalist, everything. Let's just dive right into this. Musically, it's just the same Black Dahlia Murder that we all know and love. I don't think anything has changed since then. And then the vocals from Brian. Now that had to be really kind of some pressure, taking over the lead vocals. And on my honest opinion, I think he does definitely a great job. He doesn't sound like Trevor, or tries to be him in a way, but adds his own little style and his mix into the band. It doesn't try to be a Trevor on there, and he does almost sound like Trevor in a bit, but not in a bad way. I just think he does a really great job filling it in, and his vocals sound really great. And then the guitar work from Brandon Ellis and Ryan Knight. Both of them come up with some really great riffs. It's great to see them both the way that they come up with riffs, and the leads and the soloing and everything is just amazing. I just think that both of them together, they're in the Black Dahlia Murder, is just a fucking perfect. The bass on this album is pretty audible from Max Lavelle. I think the bass playing is really stepped up a lot. And then the drumming from Alan Cassidy. I think Alan's drumming is just superb. The sick blast beats, and then the beats that he just comes up with is just perfect. So I pretty much rambled on for about 4.5 minutes. So let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Evening Ephemeral. I probably butchered that. Now, this starts off the album really good. It sort of leans into a new new kind of like style, a new sound for the Black Dahlia Murder before exploding into one of the best songs on the album. Now this track has like the conventional kind of melodic death metal sound with sort of like almost a bit of like an orchestral flair in the lead guitar, kind of like something similar to like Ritual in a way. And I think it's a great way to start off this album and a new start for this new chapter in the band. Then we move on to Panic Hysteric. Now this is a very immediate kind of song, and then this really highlights like the great return of Ryan Knight, and he has like the really great melody. He's especially injecting that into the songwriting thing, and I just love like the mixture of melodic death metal with also kind of like a hint of metalcore in there, but they definitely just doesn't make it anything bad or anything. It's just perfect. Moving on to Aftermath, which was the first single released for Servitude, and this song is just relatively short that pretty much let fans know of the band stay in the direction, and it definitely has that little bit of a continuation from Verminous, and then Brian's voice in here is just really snarled, sounding very similar to Trevor, but I feel like it's done with a more of a sense of respect than sort of like an imitation in a way. And I think Aftermath was a great like first taste of like some new Black Dahlia Murder. Then we move on to Cursed Creator. Now, rhythmically, this is the most recognizable song on the album. I love sort of like the low-end interplay between Max on bass and then the fantastic drumming from Alan. And even the rest of the track has a bit of a more kind of a relaxed pace as the song progresses. And the drums are just very warlike sounding. It just insane. One of their best songs I've heard in a long, long time. Then we move on to An Intermission, which, as you can tell by the title alone, it's a short acoustic song. It's only like a 30-second little piece, which gives a good listener a chance to breathe. Which I honestly feel like some people would say that's not really necessary. It should have been moved from the album, but it then leads into the next song being Asserting Dominion. Now this song pretty much sounds something from their older material, such as like Unhallowed or Nocturnal or Miasma or shit like that, and I feel like it simply feels like very reflective, and it fits perfectly with the album. And then we move on to the title track, Servitude. Now this song kind of feels less focused, and also feels like it's more kind of like the lighter song, and in my opinion it's probably like the weakest of the album, but nonetheless I feel like it's a solid song. Then we move on to Mammoth's Hand. Now Mammoth's Hand has a song in a way have its own identity, has a slow kind of like lead in there, and then it establishes a mix of mid-tempo rhythms and really great chugging, and I feel like it has a lot more kind of like flair and fluidity compared to like the previous songs. Next song on the album is called Transcomic Blueprint. Now this song has a strong sense of urgency fitting with the more kind of like rockin' delivery, and also has a little bit of like bluesing riffs at the midpoint, which is, in my opinion, I could consider this kind of like the more kind of like experimental song that Black Dahlia Murder has done. And then we end the album with Utopia Black. Now this song has a bit more of a dynamic interplay between the rhythm and the lead guitar work. It feels more measured and less frenetic throughout, and I feel like one thing I thought was interesting, it ends the album with a softer acoustic instrumentation, similar to how the album started with Evening Ephemeral and introducing it with it. So it kind of like goes in full circle. Now overall, Servitude by the Black Dahlia Murder is a pretty good comeback album after like losing Trevor Sternad, and now with this new chapter with Brian taking over lead vocals. I think this is a good new start for the Black Dahlia Murder. So how to give this album a score, I'm going to give Servitude by the Black Dahlia Murder a solid 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the new Black Dahlia Murder album, guys. And let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.